Aubrey Wu. This case keeps getting deeper and deeper, and I have some exclusive information about exactly where Aubrey has been. Let's talk about it. Now, as you recall, Aubrey Wu went missing from Palmer Township, Pennsylvania, back on January the 10th, 2025. It got national attention due in part to her mother and her stepfather, John, coming forward and being so vocal. Over 90 days went by while she was missing with no one knowing where she was. And due to a tipster, she was found in Jasper, Georgia on April the 14th. But where's the question of where was she before that? I know. The night that Aubrey snuck out, she went over to a town called Phillipsburg, New Jersey. It's right there by Easton, a hop, skip, and a jump, just right over the line. So she sneaks out of her window, and that's where she goes first. She then obtains $150 cash from some lady named Faith, not Faye, Faith, Faith. She then gets on a Greyhound and goes from Jersey to Whitehall, Pennsylvania. So she's kind of moving around here, not really knowing where she's going. She ends up in Whitehall. Now, in Whitehall is where she meets Faye, Faye. Remember her? The 60-plus-year-old woman that John, the father, ended up getting harassment charges against him because he wouldn't leave her alone. Trust me when I say she has many lawyers, and she's totally cleared of any wrongdoing, though what she done to me was immoral when she figured out that she was 14, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So in Whitehall, she meets Faye. She tells her that she is a non-American, homeless. She needs help. She's 20 years old. So Faye takes her in. They go to the dog show. We all know about that because that was on video. And she goes back to Faye's after the shelter. Now, after a couple of days, Faye says, I can't keep you here. Let me take you to a woman's shelter. And then Aubrey says, I don't want to go to a shelter. And so she said, well, I'll take you to your boyfriend's house. And Aubrey agrees. So they end up over at the boyfriend's house. And the boyfriend's mother says, oh, hell no. You ain't staying here, because the boyfriend's mother knows that she's 14. So at this time, nobody calls the police about this 14-year-old running around town. They simply say, leave. She's like, leave. I'm not going to do this. So Faye says, get in the car. I'm taking you home. You're 14 years old. I didn't know. So Faye drives her home, drives Aubrey home. And then Faye looks at her and says, I'm going to call the police, but I'm giving you a 5-minute head start. Knowing she's 14. So Aubrey says, okay. So she goes back in her house and sneaks back out the window. That's when she called for the Uber that took her to the Wawa where we saw the surveillance photos from. But here's where her journey gets interesting. She gets on a Greyhound there and goes to Washington, D.C. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's the only money she's got to get her to this point. So she goes to Washington, D.C. She stays there for several days, and you probably can kind of guess what happens there, but she makes her way along, all right? A few days later, I don't know how many days. So when I say few, it could be one to many days. She gathers up enough money to get a Greyhound bus to Nevada. So she travels on a bus across the country from Washington, D.C. to Nevada, where her grandmother lives. But for some reason, she didn't make it to Grandma's. She then gets back on another Greyhound bus and goes all the way back to Colorado. I don't know what's in Colorado at this point. It is rumored that Faye has a house there, but that was the only connection. But Faye had been cleared. So I don't know who else that she knew in Colorado, but that's where she went. She then meets Hunter, the man we've all heard about, and somehow online through a stitch of a TikTok. And the next thing you know, Hunter bought her a $400 Greyhound ticket to come from Denver, Colorado specifically, down to Jasper, Georgia. So she spends that time in Jasper, Georgia, with her new boyfriend at his home. And this goes on for a minute. And this is how Mitch gets involved. Mitch, the friend who turned the tip in, because he's noticing that there's this new girl at Hunter's house, his best friend, and it's kind of not making sense. So he calls Hunter over to have a talk with him about this new 20-year-old that's staying in the home. They make up a story where Hunter has to stay with him. So they call the mom, and the mom says, listen, he's not going to be here for a few days, so I'm going to drive you to a hotel. She does, and then another truck picks her up from that Jasper hotel and drives her to a hotel in Monroe, Georgia. She shares her location with Mitch. Mitch gives the location to the police, and that's how she was apprehended. Now that we know where she went, who was she with while she was there? She is very lucky as a 14-year-old to have traveled the whole country by herself and not be harmed, kidnapped, or worse. But here's the other part, and I know this is long, but hang in there with me. Listen to this audio from 2 days ago where Shane Cole, Child Safety Soldiers, goes over to John's house and confronts him. And he says, do you know where she's at? And then John says, yes, because we've been at the immigration office all day.
John, listen, your kid, where's your kid, your stepkid?
You know where she is? She's getting the help she needs,
I
Shane.
do. She's getting the help she needs away from you. Away from you.
Office.
I know exactly.
And I done some digging. And it turns out the reason that they were at the immigration office is because Aubrey was born in China. She is not a regular U.S. citizen. Now, you may say, are they going to deport her? And the answer is no. They're going to work on getting her green card. That's what they're working on right now. And today she starts a school that teaches teens how not to use their body and some really resourceful resources that she needs to continue on her journey. She's got a long way to go as far as therapy, and there are some prior things that happened to her that I won't repeat, but know that she has not had a normal childhood. She's not had an easy one. There's a lot of things that happened to her, including an incident at a party when she was 12 years old. But I'll leave you with this. Here's the cold, hard truth. She doesn't want to go home because of John. I cannot say no more, but she doesn't want to go there and be around him. Now, he's under investigation for wire fraud, and he's under investigation for something else I can't say. But they did take all of their electronics, phones. They can't be on social media right now, the parents. So for parents to be so vocal and now they can't say anything is insane. There's got to be something there. And check this out. Aubrey was watching their lives and listening the whole time. And according to Aubrey, she loves her mom, but she doesn't want to be around John. So they are talking to Grandma in Nevada for possible custody, but this is not for sure. So Aubrey, who said herself she would rather go to a foster home than go back home. And I understand why. What will happen next in the Aubrey Wu case? Make sure you bookmark this so you can find your way back.